Welcome, fam. Our story today takes us to the beautiful city of Dakar, located in Senegal, in Africa. Our journey is to find out what happened here and why more than 6 million people died here as a result of human greed and sheer wickedness. Please consider to subscribe, like, and ring the notification bell to support our channel. I was skeptical at first, but upon arrival in Senegal, I found the people very welcoming and very, very hospitable. Our drive from the airport to the coastal area was about an hour. After booking our ticket for the boat ride to Goree Island, which is located about 20 minutes by boat, I took the front seat so as to have a better view of the coastal areas. We came across Mercy Ships, which has been doing some really great work in Africa, and I must use this opportunity to appreciate their wonderful work. After passing by, I started focusing more on what lies ahead. I had some knowledge about what happened here in Goree Island, but I wanted to see and hear it from the people who knew better. I wanted to feel the history and see the hidden evidence.
En bas Sénégal, les Blancs avaient le droit d'avoir des rapports sexuels avec les jeunes filles africaines. Les Blancs violaient les jeunes filles africaines. C'est ce qui a donné naissance au signal. Stay here 4 months and they wait in the boat. For example, they come in Africa,
Yeah.
they give a necklace.
Yeah.
On one horse, they can have it. And when they bring these people in America, when they sell it, it's gold.
Yeah.
It's not the same price. If you come here, you come have a service, necklace, alcohol, drink,
Yeah.
rum, materials.
Yeah.
And you bring your slave in America,
to
or
America.
Dakar, and you sell it with some gold. That's why over there, tous les Européens sont devenus riches comme ça à cause de l'esclavage. And 400 years they sell the black man here.
400 years.
Yeah, they begin to sell the black man here. 1536. I say it's 20 million slaves they pass here. That's why if you see all Africa, it's about 100 million.
Who lived here? See, the building did not change.
Signal is a woman, the man is black, the father is white.
Oh, a métis.
Métis.
Yes.
I say you, European people, they have sex with African lady. When it's like women, when they get a baby, when the baby is a woman, they say signal.
Okay.
When it's a man, they say miratos.
Okay.
Huh? This is a signal. She built this slave's house in 1780. The first governor, say Boufflers.
Yeah.
Huh? Boufflers.
Well, Jean Boufflers.
Because this time the governor never come in Africa with the wife.
Yes.
Because in Africa they have many sickness.
Yes.
They take one signal to live in concubinage.
Like a concubine.
Concubine for
Yes.
5 years. After 5 years, the governor they go back home. The new one they come, they take the house and the wife of the governor.
Of the old governor.
Of old governor. That's why Jean Paul II they come here to say sorry African people in 1992.
1992.
African people they say they can excuse, but they cannot forget.
Yeah. Slave. How much did they say was slave?
The slave, if you have 60 kilograms, 6 kg, you can buy him with the alcohol, drink. The men, they have 60 kilograms, they have the same price like your breast, they can know how visible or not. If your breast is full, it's visible. If your breast is full, your price, they go 4 times less.
Yeah.
The children, they see the tooth.
The teeth, yeah.
They select them. And the slaves come from all Africa. This is for 20 people. 20. 20 people.
20 slaves in this small home. 20 slaves.
This is here they make the Yoruba people.
Yoruba people were in here.
It's for the children.
For the who?
The children.
The children.
23% the children and the women. You know, Yoruba people, they have metal, they make oil,
Yeah.
and they make fire, and they put in your skin, they give you number.
Yeah.
You cannot go with your African, and you go with your number.
A number. It has become evidently clear that the slave trade was not only to make a profit, but also to dismantle the African identity, as the slaves were branded with numbers and had to stop pronouncing their own names.
The food is a beans with oil palm. 4 months, 6 months. If we are not big, they sell you are like domestic, you don't go. Here is for troublemakers, for 8 people inside, for 21 days. In 1991, Mandela, they come here, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah?
1991, Mandela, they stay here inside, 10 minutes. And when they go out, they cry. You say, Mandela, why you cry? They say, I remember my prison. This window, they opened it 1848.
Yeah.
It's for troublemakers. And here is the woman, no fishing woman, no fishing.
I could not believe that in the eyes of the slave traders, human life or the human life of an adult was worth as little as a bottle of rum or a piece of necklace. I then wanted to know, what were the missionaries doing at this time? What made slavery so easy? How was it organized? Then I learned a shocking truth.
No, the children, they change the father every 5 years.
The children have a new...
They take the name of the mothers, because the father, every 5 years, you have a new one.
They change the father every 5 years. So they grow up without knowing who their real father is.
C'est l'église qui bénissait ces mariages, c'est l'église catholique. Et les appelait les mariages à la mode du pays, les mariages à la mode du pays.
The church was in on it. The church even blessed these marriages and contributed to the sale of slaves.
Every family had a place. Chaque famille avait sa place. Stop it, mais after they continue.
Yes.
Because in 1874, you have the government here, they built the house for the government.
But just when I was about to get really angry about that, our guide told me about this woman.
This woman, she buy the slave and she give them freedom.
Anne-Marie Jaffohay, a French nun who spent her own money and bought slaves for the sole purpose of setting them free. You accept that you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior.
And they give you freedom and they give you the name Gourmet.
They give you her name?
Name Gourmet, because they don't want people, they say you slave. That's why here you have some Catholic, they say them Gourmet.
A peaceful place was turned into a combat outpost. Weapons were brought in, and the solitude of the Africans who lived here was changed for a long time. But this story is not one of doom, because as you know, Africans resisted the slave trade and eventually won their freedom. Or did they? As we left the island, I had some troubling questions in my head. What started all this? Why would the church take part in such a barbaric act? Is slavery responsible for Africa's state of underdevelopment today? Why would humans do this to themselves? Is slavery a spark of racism? And are wars and weapons the answer to human problems? Drive to the airport for our return flight. It was almost midnight. I was tired. And then I remembered the word Ubuntu. Which is the word that explains why Africans have forgiven the barbaric act of slavery on them and the ancestors. I felt good to be from a people who can easily forgive and still endure hardships, but who always look forward to the future with hope, dignity, and a sense of belonging. I felt proud. I felt honored. And I felt wonderful to be an African.